First things first, Billy. How are you?
Tired. Okay, tired.
Well, hopefully you'll get some rest then soon, but
Yeah.
thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks.
Before we get into the album Eat the Elephant, I'd like to jump back to the beginning quickly.
Okay.
Do you remember do you remember the time when you figured out that music meant just a little bit more to you than the most people around you?
Mid-teens, I guess. I don't know, maybe earlier. Maybe at the earliest age, just digging into whatever I could. But it seemed music meant a lot to my peers, to my friends and everything. I think when music started, like listening to it so much that I felt like I had to take the next logical step, which was to pick up an instrument and kind of move in that direction, was, in like 16 years old, something like that.
Well, was the guitar the first instrument you gravitated towards?
Yeah. Okay. It was the only access that really I had. I had a friend of mine, Rob, played guitar. He lived down the street from me, so I just go watch him practice. And he was like a shredding metal player, and I just sit in his room and watch him play scales. I mean, it was the most boring thing in the world, but for some reason I found it interesting. And I guess I got the bug enough to want to kick into it after watching that for, a month of going there once in a while and just like getting into the technical aspect of it. I've always been kind of technically minded. I ripped apart the home TV/stereo unit when I was a little kid. I took it completely apart at, I think I was like 7 or something. Like those old console TVs, with the built-in speakers and it's a cabinet.
Sure.
I took apart every circuit in there. Luckily, I unplugged it. Yeah.
Did you put them back together again?
No,
as well?
I never could figure out how to get it back together. But I laid it out on the floor, and yeah, my dad helped me put it back together. So that was kind of part of my, I guess, DNA is that technical, curiosity. So that kind of ticked both boxes with like loving music and getting over to see Rob play and seeing the effects and guitars and amps and everything like that. It just, I caught the bug, around 16, 17.
And by seeing this, did you want to be one of those shredders as well, or did you? What was your initial approach to the guitar?
Yeah, that seemed. It's like you go with what access you have and what who's ever influencing you, and yeah, that's where I started. So I wanted to dive right into like Randy Rhoads. That was kind of where I wanted to go. My first 6 months, I just played that really badly. I went to a music store here yesterday, actually, and I swear there was this guy playing all the songs I used to play in that first year or two of playing, and just as badly as I played them, playing way too fast, way too technical before its time, and it kind of made me laugh and think back to that time. Like I got to the point where I could play pretty much the whole first 2 Ozzy records, but badly, So I kind of quickly tried to unlearn this about 2 years after. After playing for about 2 years, I realized all the music that really meant the most to me was not technical whatsoever. It was about song structure and about atmosphere and about mood. And so I still had, a little bit of chops built in from my, early metal days, but then just kind of concentrated and kind of segued into different approaches.
So was it here then where bands like Pink Floyd started to?
No, that was in the beginning too. I mean, David Gilmour for sure is included in that. I don't know if you call it metal, but just in that guitar-driven or guitar-centric kind of music. Rush certainly was there. It's fun to play. It's moderately challenging. AC/DC a little bit. There was a. I didn't know many musicians, but I knew this guy Pat who played drums and Lee who played bass, and we started jamming in my basement and just played covers, and so that was a lot of. I think me as a guitar player came from playing those initial songs. I guess that's it's like the neighborhood you grow up in. That's kind of the neighborhood of songs that I grew up in, which is whatever they would pick and what I would pick to cover.
Sure.
And you learn a lot from that. I think there's something to be said about just kind of taking a bunch of different influences, throw them into a pot, see what boils to the top, and that's you as a musician.
But I think it's interesting what you say about taking electronical equipment apart, because is that then what you did with music as well, where like you say, you delve into those songs and kind of, did you take them apart and kind of see how they were structured? And
yeah, very much. I always want to kind of turn over every stone and see what's beneath and what's the process. You know, I don't know what my life would be like if I had the internet when I was a teenager. I can't imagine, because I'd probably implode from curiosity. I'd just be socially just unavailable. Yeah, I was looking for any interview or any kind of information, reading lining notes, see who produced what, you know, how did this, you know, connection, like 4AD was a great label, right? And seeing all the bands that kind of came together and how that all worked. But I was doing it with such limited means, and I didn't have a community of people that were interested as well. So it was kind of an isolated effort.
So around this time then, how did you think about music as a future, as a career choice? Did you think, well, I'm going to be in a band? Did you think, well, maybe I can be a producer? Where was your mind at this point?
Funny enough, it brings us to here in Amsterdam, okay. A little bit. So I started late. I was right before my 17th birthday that I started playing guitar. And my sister worked for American Express Travel at the time, and she said, for my birthday, you know, she said, anywhere you want to go on planet Earth to go for a long weekend. So I picked Australia first. She's like, it's a little far. So I picked Amsterdam as my number 2.
Well, very quickly, why Amsterdam?
You know, I don't exactly know why. I just, you know, we get a limited history and learn about geography. I love geography. Like I grew up in my parents' basement. There was like these Time Life books, and one was I had all these great maps, and I just like scouring maps and like, what would life be like living there? There was something about this part of the world. I think partly, you know, my mom's 100% Italian. My dad was Irish and Dutch German, I guess. My last name is kind of around here. So maybe there was some kind of spark from that.
Right.
I just found out our last name was Van Howerdel, I think. Was okay. I guess they get to Ellis Island when you get to America, and they just cross that out like, nope, can't pronounce that. You're Howerdel. Okay. So yeah, I don't know why, but it's something made me pick here. So we flew over here for like 4 or 5 days, and I think just seeing like street performers, there was like a whole culture of street performers going on here that I was like, I could see myself doing that, like just coming here and living here and just experiment, like playing songs that I'm going to write and with no pressure, and just sit in the street and play songs. I never did it, but it was something interesting. I just kind of wound up doing it in the privacy and of my parents' basement at the time as a teenager, and then kind of branched out from there.
Do you remember the first song that you were proud of that you wrote?
Yeah, kind of. First batch for sure, and some are Perfect Circle songs. Okay. Hollow is one of the very first ones. Okay. We Can Powerless was right in there. Brenya. There was one that I still haven't released yet, and I might do soon. But it's funny because, you know, they're pretty crude in form. But when I started, I bought a guitar. I bought a Fender Squier Telecaster, you know, the cheap ones. Sure. And then for some reason sold that and bought a BC Rich ST3 because I wanted a whammy bar and the whole thing. You know, if you're going to play metal stuff, you kind of get limited on a Telecaster. But I rented a 4-track cassette recorder and a drum machine and a bass guitar from this place, you know, about 30 minutes away. So I'd, you know, kind of get a bunch of ideas in my head at least, and then throw them down on that tape recorder when I could. And I still have those tapes, and I still revisited that even for this record. Okay. I wrote a lot on cassette that I just have archived. Now I put it on the computer and I just kind of peruse through.
That's an interesting thought, because I can imagine with those tapes, and like you say, you revisit them and they might be a bit crude, but what do you hear in those songs and in what you were trying to do, especially considering kind of the albums you've made over the years?
the one nice thing about making records and making records that I think sound good is, you know, the confidence of like, okay, I don't need to finish things out exactly now. I can leave it a mess and embarrassing and everything, and I don't need to prove it to myself, so I can leave it in that form. And I think it leaves the song open and more porous to be able to, especially like working with Maynard, to have it be a more collaborative approach, you know, because I don't have to have it exactly the way I hear it, because I want to hear what he has to say about it. I mean, that's the whole point of being in a band together, is, you know, getting a different point of view.
And well, we'll get to the way you work a little bit later, because there's a couple of things more I want to get at, because you mentioned kind of the guitar playing, and now you've said in interviews that on this record, Eat the Elephant, your approach is more piano based in a way. When did piano kind of become a factor in your songwriting and your playing?
I always had a little bit of it in the other records, but 2013, 14, by 2014, that's the year I kind of just made a choice to put down the guitar for a bit. You know.
How come?
Just to try. I just wanted to, I think a little bit of like the Martin Gore syndrome hit me. I don't even know if that's a real term. I think Depeche Mode has great songs, and I think it's like his approach is kind of probably more from a traditional sense, you know, a left and right hand, a chord structure with a melody, and I never really approached music like that before. I kind of made parts that were compelling enough for me to continue with, and then just add a part that accompanied it. But but the initial part wasn't a whole song in structure, you know. So I just wanted to. It sounds so elementary, but like go down that path of just finding song structure from the beginning. So a piano is kind of an easy way to go about that, and just seeing what you can do right away. So there wasn't much more than that. Getting out of muscle memory patterns with guitar too was important to me, you know. And so I just wanted to see what happened. But I did wind up. It was fun picking up the guitar once again. You know, I was like, wow, I forgot I could play. You know, so struggling with piano and keyboard and then picking up guitar, like, oh, I'm not as frustrated. This is, you know, fun.
But was that then a clear sign to you, well, the guitar is my instrument, or is the piano now becoming something that you do want to get better at?
I do want to get better at, but not enough to really spend a whole lot of time, you know? It's like, there's an exercise I do, but it's like I always rush through it. I do exactly what I would tell someone that's learning, like don't play it faster than you can, you know. But I do it just kind of to warm up sometimes, not before a show or anything. I don't play anything too challenging during the show. But I gave all the heavy lifting to Greg Edwards. He's got to play Eat the Elephant. Yeah, I don't know. My brain doesn't work in memorizing keys the same as guitar. Sometimes I get. It's kind of weird to me that we humans can remember how to play all these notes with this timing and inflection on autopilot, and it's very apparent to me once I think about piano, because it doesn't come naturally to me. It's not. I have to really think about what the next thing is.
But that's an interesting point, because obviously there have been some years where the band wasn't together, you were all doing your own things. And once you reconvened and the kind of touring started up again, did you have to relearn songs, or did that come naturally?
I had to relearn. It's not playing them so much. I mean, I never really got in and practiced before the tour, before rehearsal. I just, let's see what happens. It's memorizing what buttons to hit on my pedal board, you know. That's the hardest part. Singing and playing is challenging. Depends on what song. You know, there's some things I play and sing that are really like the hollow. At the end of the hollow, on this one, So Long and Thanks for All the Fish is really. I don't know, if you're a guitar player, try and play and sing what I'm playing. You know, it's like it's hard. Like they're not synced. You know, they're not. I didn't write them. I didn't write the vocal melody, so I didn't write it with that in mind. Right. And that's kind of interesting too, because I think we get lazy getting back to piano. I mean, you play piano and sing something, it's what you can do, and maybe that's natural, but it's maybe not it might be very obvious. And I think one thing that's nice about Maynard's approach is it's not always obvious. He's a great with puzzles, you know, so he can figure out the puzzle of what a challenging odd structure and go from there.